In Washington, D.C., a street just blocks from the White House, now painted in the words of our country's call for justice. The city putting Black Lives Matter in giant yellow letters on the street. You can see them there. Those words stretching 2 city blocks near the historic St. John's Church. It's the same church where President Trump took a controversial photo on Monday. The mayor of D.C. also renaming a street near the White House Black Lives Matter Plaza. NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber is joining me now from Washington, D.C. And Ellison, I understand you're outside the National Cathedral where protesters are staging a sit-in today. What's it like there?
Yeah, Allison, you can see some of the crowd, a lot of the crowd actually still here just in front of the National Cathedral. Most of the people who are here today are students. This was a sit-in, a protest led by 2 students, one who has recently graduated from the National Cathedral School, another who is a rising senior. Both of them hold leadership positions on the Student Black Union. They put this together because they said they wanted their voices to be heard among their other peers, particularly their white peers. And they also wanted to make sure that everyone was paying attention. They were on the same page. The message they kept saying today was, if you're not with us, then get out of the way. At one point, they all knelt around the circle here and put their fist up in the air as they chanted the sayings, the chants we've come to hear so often right now. Black Lives Matter, say her name. Breonna Taylor, say his name. George Floyd. So again, all of these students, they've been here for about 2.5 hours, making their voices heard and listening to each other. Again, predominantly a young group of people here, high school students or recent graduates. Allison?
Ellison, the mayor of D.C. wrote a letter to President Trump. She asked him to withdraw federal law enforcement and military presence from the city. But with today's protests and more obviously expected over the weekend, is that going to happen? And could you describe, if you can, what the tension is like right now between city leaders and the White House?
Well, we know that some active duty troops who were sent to D.C. from out of state have been called off, and some of them have started to leave. In terms of that letter that the mayor sent President Trump, we saw the mayor earlier today, and I asked her if she had gotten any sort of response from President Trump or the White House. This was about 3 hours ago or so. At that point, she said they had not heard anything officially. President Trump has since tweeted calling the mayor incompetent and saying that she is now fighting with the National Guard. But beyond that, as far as we know, there hasn't been a more specific response to her letter. In her letter, she said that all active military presence, all extraordinary federal law enforcement sent here because of the protests, that they should leave D.C. because she says D.C. is no longer in a state of emergency. But there is a whole lot of tension between the White House and the city of D.C. There's pushback, disagreements over who controls what area. We've seen that play out over the last couple of days as you saw federal law enforcement officers come further outside of Lafayette Park into areas controlled by D.C. and D.C. police. So not a great relationship, I think you could probably say, between the White House and D.C. and the D.C. mayor. But we do know that the mayor sent that formal letter to the president. As of a few hours ago, she said she hadn't heard back specifically from the White House, but President Trump did seem to tweet about it a little while ago. Allison?
Ellison, before you go, let's talk about that giant Black Lives Matter mural on the streets outside the White House. So amazing to see. You spoke with the artists who helped city crews paint it. What did they tell you?
Yeah, I mean, they started painting that at about 2:30 in the morning. One of the city officials helping to oversee it told me that they started the project with a number of local painters, local muralists. They were there early in the morning. Then more people came. They saw what they were doing, and then people just started volunteering. By the time the sun came up, they had, close to 100 volunteers helping paint that. One of the local artists, though, who played a big role in getting it painted, talked a little bit about what the message was. He said that that is meant to be a message specifically for President Trump. Listen here.
Okay, as a local artist, I mean, we're trying to make a point, to the world, especially Donald Trump. We're not going to have any more of the police brutality. Military state, we don't want that. We all want to come together as one cohesion to make everything better for the entire United States.
So there's been a lot of positive reaction to that painting in the street. It's about 2 blocks long, as well as the changing of the name of the street in front of the White House there to Black Lives Matters Plaza. But D.C. Black Lives Matters, they have criticized and pushed back on some of what the mayor is doing. On Twitter, they said this, quote, "This is a performative distraction from real policy changes. Bowser," meaning Mayor Bowser, "has consistently been on the wrong side of Black Lives Matters D.C. history. This is to appease white liberals while ignoring our demands. Black Lives Matters means defund the police." So again, a powerful display for a lot of people in the area. Some questions, though, in terms of if it is enough from the mayor. You know, her office says this is a step, perhaps a step in the right direction, but activists say there is still a long way to go, and they want to see a whole lot more at the federal level and at the local level here in D.C. Allison?
Allison Barber, we still need to see a lot more change here, but it really was inspirational to see those letters going up today, and a reminder for people that there is so much more to come. Allison Barber, thank you so much.
You bet.
Protesters marching in downtown Los Angeles today, and they're laying roses on the steps of the Hall of Justice. NBC News correspondent Jacob Sobroff joining me now. And Jacob, protesters have been laying roses there all day long. It's just beautiful to see. Would you tell our viewers a bit about the symbolism here?
It is beautiful to see, Allison, and this is a protest, but really more of a vigil that's been organized by a group called Dignity and Power to commemorate the lives lost across the country, but especially here in Los Angeles at the hands of law enforcement and police. And we heard earlier from several speakers who were right in that category, lost a family member, a brother, a friend, a son. And in fact, Helen, you got a second right now? Helen's going to come in. I want to introduce you to her. You spoke earlier about your son who lost his life in the men's central jail here, the largest jail in the country. In solitary confinement. Tell me about your son.
My son's name was John Horton, John Thomas Horton III, and he was beat to death in solitary confinement in Men's Central Jail by the 3,000 sheriff deputy gang. It's called a 3,000 boy gang. And they beat a lot of and killed a lot of inmates on the 3rd floor. And my son was one of their victims. And they bust his liver, they bust his kidney, they bust his pancreas, his part of his pelvis, bust a muscle in his back, hit him so hard in his head with a flashlight that they left the print of the flashlight on his forehead. They broke the cartilage on his nose. They also hit him on the side of his temple twice. And then after that, he hemorrhaged all from all those places, and then they staged his death with a staged suicide. And these officers, two of the officers was fired, and I'm trying to get convictions brought on these officers today.
Do you believe in your heart that you'll be able to do that? I mean, when you see this, people out on the streets like this in support of Black Lives, number one, George Floyd, but also people like your son, does it give you hope?
Yes, it gives me hope as far as people knowing what's going on now after what happened to George Floyd. It's sad that it took his death to show what the police been doing to people for centuries. So it give me hope that people now seeing what the police department do to Black lives and brown folks. And I'm just glad that I hate that it took a death to do this, but now they see that this is really taking place, and people, we've been crying about it for centuries.
Helen, I appreciate you, and I know all these people appreciate you too. It was very powerful to hear from you, and I know thank you very much. I know you got your roses. You already put some roses down there for your son. It's so nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you. You are.
Thank you very much. And Allison, as Helen goes here with the members of the Dignity and Power Coalition, I do just want to show you, this is a very peaceful scene, but Scott, if we can swing around real quick. The National Guard is here, and they just pulled up. Oh, excuse me. Come on with me over here just so I can show you. Here they are up here. They're just getting into position. This is called the County Hall of Justice. And just in the time that we've been here for this protest, we've seen the National Guard move in. I have to say, this has been a very peaceful protest. Let's just swing back around so I can show you. Yeah. So it is a little bit surprising to see the National Guard here now and arrive in a big bus like that. But it's been peaceful, and I don't see a situation in which that changes, Allison.
Yeah, Jacob, it certainly doesn't look like a situation that's calling for the National Guard at this point, but we know situations have changed quickly, so hopefully this one will remain peaceful. A question for you, because I noticed, of course, you're wearing a mask, Helen wearing a mask, so many of the folks out there wearing a mask. We can't forget about the coronavirus right now. We are still in the midst of a pandemic. L.A. County shutting down testing sites during the protests. Those sites reopened today. What is the level of concern there about a spike in cases because of the protests, because of the crowds that have been out?
Everybody's talking about it, quite honestly. And you're right. The city shut down the sites throughout the county when the unrest started here earlier this week or a week ago. Now that they're reopening, obviously that's a positive step. But there, you know, we've had thousands of people here on the streets of downtown. It's just the obvious things to think about. Social distancing has gone out the window in the spirit of justice and the spirit of bringing these people together. And all we can do, you know, you got to talk to the public health officials, is hope that that it doesn't spread because of it.
Jacob, before we leave you, I just want to ask, what are the plans in the city this evening through the weekend? I know you did mention that the National Guard was coming in there today. Is there concern about what could happen this evening? Are they expecting protests to take a less calm form tonight?
No, you know, as far as I know, no. Look, and here are some more LAPD officers that are arriving on the scene right now. Okay. I find it puzzling, actually. Let's take a walk, Scott, if you don't mind, just down this way, because it's as peaceful as it can be. And so I don't know why the National Guard, and let's see if I can get a closer look, but I don't know why the National Guard has moved into position. You can't see them here, but they are in the front door here of the County Hall of Justice. As far as I can see here, there's no reason to have that type of militarized reinforcement here in the face of such a peaceful protest. So, so the honest answer is I don't know.
Jacob, can I ask
it's
a
been
question?
Peaceful the last couple nights. Sure.
It looks like, I mean, from where they're posting and where the flowers are there, it looks like a barricade and quite a distance between the folks and the National Guard at the front door. Are people even able to get close to where they are?
No, they can't. And you can just see here as people are standing, Allison, we're probably, I don't know, a good 50 yards away from the front door to the Hall of Justice. So it is strange. It's a little bit unusual to see this, although nothing's unusual now in these times. And you can only hope that, you know, again, completely peaceful. Any escalation would be very surprising and very unnecessary at this point, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Jacob, just as you've been saying, I mean, that memorial just beautiful, a real tribute to all the lives that have been lost, really moving there, and just incredible, all the roses there, evidence that a lot of folks have come out today.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.